We have a finance director update on the town budget process. We'll have a school budget update from members of the school committee and school administration. We posted an agenda item to discuss a prior joint meeting around the MBTA communities planning work process. Some members, just wanted to have some additional conversation on that. Public input, member updates. We'll approve previous meeting minutes and then adjourn with an anticipated adjournment of 8. So let's see, finance director update. Our finance director is not yet on. So Anthony, unless you wanted to give anything, we can jump to the schools and then circle back to Alicia's update.
Yeah, I can give you a little bit of what we were talking about today. So we have all the data now from all the communities, from all the departments and their capital requests. So what we're going to do is present all of the information as submitted at the select board's meeting on December 5th. I'm thinking maybe having a joint meeting, maybe if Fincom wants to join us that night, maybe the school committee, just so everybody realizes based on what all these requests are. We're looking at a $1.6 million deficit right now, structural deficit. So, and that's what we're going to talk about. And then in the following meeting in December, we're hoping to have if we can get there, and I think that we can, the budget book ready and the recommended town administrator and finance director recommended spending plan for FY24. Obviously the Fincom and the select board can weigh in on that and make changes as they see fit. But at that point, we're going to present you a balanced budget. And then if you want to make adjustments to one department, you just have to pull from another department. So hopefully that helps the process this year. That was certainly the direction that the select board wanted to see. And I think there was members of this Fincom wanted to see. Well, they were members of the Fincom until they became treasurer again. Right, Steve? So that's our budget process. And then after that, really after the holidays, after Christmas, then I would expect Fincom and select board to jump in and do your thing. And we'll have that big budget Saturday meeting and then smaller department meetings at another time. And then you can dissect these budgets and see see how you want to move forward.
Just a question: will we be able to see the capital requests prior to that meeting, prior to the 5th?
It'll be ready on. Let me look at my calendar. Hold on. So they'll be posted by the 1st or the 2nd. That we'll have them ready.
Okay.
So it'll give you that weekend to digest it and take a look at it. And again, obviously, that's the unvetted request. Just for example, there's $9 million in requests for FY24, and we don't have $9 million. We have 1.7, 1.8, somewhere around there to spend. So yeah, there's some decisions have to be made, and I feel more optimistic with getting there with the capital plan because there's certain procedures we have to follow before we just consider a roof for the high school. We're not going to allocate, or we're not going to be, I can tell you right now, we're not going to be recommended $4 million for FY24. Why? Because Mass General Law Chapter 149 says you have to do design, bid, build. So the first part of any construction project, vertical construction project over $150,000 is you have to have a design feasibility study. So we would get a design engineer to come in and really evaluate that roof and tell us, is this something that we could phase in? Is it something that we need right away? Is it something that we maybe can patch and put this as an MSBA project and take advantage of the, roughly approximately 50% that the state would pay towards that project? So we'll get a better idea. But that's like one of the examples that, you know, we're not going to be recommending $4 million. I can tell you that right now.
Is that roof old enough to qualify for an MSBA?
Well, it's anything normally over 25 years, Fred. So, you know, it'll take us, you know, the year to do the feasibility study and then digest it. And then we'll have a plan. Maybe we can buy a couple of years because we did put some patchwork on there. And if we can, I'd love to see that because I'd love to see the state contribute. But if not, and we have to, then we'll find that out after the study.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anthony, I think, I mean, we'll post it for the day after as well on the 6th. So, I mean, you know, I think as a board, we'll have the opportunity to, you know, to dig in and really talk about it too the day after, right? So, but I can pull the audience and see if we can get a quorum for the night before as well, or at least be there to observe if we can't.
And if I understood correctly, Anthony, you said that you and Alicia would be coming forward with your recommended balanced budget, and that assumes that there's some number in there for the school.
Correct.
Or okay, so it's the whole budget. It's not just the town operating budget. Okay, great.
Right. Yeah, on both sides, Fred. Both sides are going to have to sharpen the pencil. You know, schools came in at 7.4. I think collectively the town was. No. If I'm not correct, and Alicia, she looks like she might have.
Yeah, Alicia. But she says you having technical difficulties, Anthony. I keep promoting her, and she just keeps dropping back out.
Yeah, I think the town's asked for 10%. So you know that's not happening on either side, or not that it's not happening. It's there's struggles on each side that they're going to have to really sharpen the pencil and see.
Okay. Yep. Good.
All right. Well, we could revisit. I mean, Anthony, anything else you want to share, or we could revisit this agenda item when Alicia hops in, hopefully, right? So I can have the school come on and present.
Oh, that's it for where we stand with the budget, anyways.
Okay. One other thing while I have you, one other thought is just, you know, I know from prior conversation and from looking at the select board meeting last night, you know, they are potentially looking at doing a special town meeting. You know, one thing I had asked Alicia before, I just want to make sure they were just informed with this is what you know what the financial impact of having that special town meeting, the unbudgeted town meeting would be, so they could figure out where that cost was going to come from, and make sure the select board kind of had that info as well as they were looking at the second special.
It goes, you know, approximately ballpark about $5,000, give or take $1,000 or so to put on a town meeting.
Okay.
So it's something that certainly we get the message. I think the select board got the message from the residents that would like to see that firearm bylaw not wait until the annual town meeting. And I think if the select board didn't call for a special town meeting, that most likely that they would do a citizen petition and get the 200 signatures that would require us to have a special town meeting. I think we had that, oh geez, Fred, what's it, about 5 years ago with that tennis issue?
Right. 100% that would happen.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear the number of 5,000, because last week people were talking more like a $25,000 number, which didn't make any sense to me.
No,
right. Yeah,
you know, and we could scale back some stuff too, depending on, you know, do we need 2 screens and so forth? But yeah, it's more the time. It's really the staff. You know, it's my office, it's LCTV, it's the town clerk, you know, all of us that really, it takes a lot to put together a special town meeting or any town meeting. So that's, you know, and obviously there's a price attached to that, but you guys are already paying us anyway. So something just gives while we prepare for a special town meeting. That's all.
All right. Any other questions for?
The timing on that, and does it mesh at all with the potential property acquisition? Or
Yeah, that would be the goal too, Fred. Yeah, it would be to, we probably could end up having 3 or 4 warrant articles ready for a special town meeting. One could be the acquisition of 36 King Street. I think it's 36 King Street, and or Indian Hill, anyways. And then the other would be the firearm bylaw.
Okay, let's not hire any more people.
Yeah, no, it's not in my plans right now, for sure. Yeah, and so and that would probably be, Fred, to answer the other question, it probably would be looking the very earliest, the Tuesday after MLK, or the following week would probably be more like it, like 20 something, whatever that is.
All righty.
So Alicia, I just talked them through what we talked about as far as the budget and where we stand with the capital, and what the plan is to present all the raw data on December 5th, and having that as a joint meeting with Fincom, and inviting the school committee to join in, where we'll present both what the asks are for the capital plan and then the operating budget, and showing them that, we have over $9 million in capital projects and 1.8 or 7 to spend. And then with the operating budget that we're, with all the asks right now, it's a structural deficit of 1.7-ish million dollars. So that's what I was just briefing them on.
Yep, perfect.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
And
Technical difficulties trying to jump on.
that's okay. Yeah, Alicia, I think, we'll strive for joining that. We either way, we'll post it the next day. So if we can't get a quorum for the 5th, let's just plan on you doing that same presentation to us on Tuesday would be awesome.
Okay.
And I can make the 5th.
Yeah, I think I can too. So we don't need a quorum to be there. We just can't do any business, but we can sit, listen, and throw popcorn from the peanut gallery.
Absolutely. Alicia, anything else on your update? I know I'd asked, kind of for the update on the budget process. I wasn't sure if there's anything else you had.
I think Anthony covered that. We had the tax rate info session yesterday with the select board. We have the tax rate hearing on December 5th.
Okay. Great.
I actually watched that meeting, and I thought Steve and you people did a nice job presenting the information on the tax classification. It was basically came across as sort of a primer on how to do it and what it means and what it meant before and what it could mean in the future. And I recommended that members of the Fincom actually go back and watch that tape, because I think it was really well done. And I think had some half decent questions from the selectmen, but I think that Steve covered the bases pretty darn well. And I just think it was a well done activity.
Yeah, Fred, thanks for pointing that out. I think too, just, looking at the growth numbers was good too, right? That kind of part of it where we're talking about, the town growth over the next couple of years is kind of, something for all of us to consider as you look at, the impact on property values going up, and then some of the growth that's not going to come in as quickly as we at least had hoped a year or two ago with 550, right?
I think the caution in the budget cycle is what happens with inflation over the next couple of years, because we've really lulled in maybe a false sense of security with very, very low inflation, and 2.5 with whatever new growth we've had is basically covered a lot. But if the town ends up having to give more in the way of wage increases than what they have been used to giving because of inflation, then it's really difficult for 2.5 to keep up. And that's where the rubber really meets the road. So I think we need to really be careful over the next couple of years as we go through the budget cycle and really keep an eye on what inflation is doing.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other questions for Anthony or Alicia at this point, or otherwise I'll promote in our guests from the school committee and administration. Thank you. A sec here. Dangerous. They made me a host.
Yeah, schools are here. They're attending.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I'm moving all in as panelists here.
Oh, wow. We've got the A team tonight, huh?
We do. Justin, Kelly, Jen, Steve, thank you all for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, anytime. You're more than welcome. So with this, I had the opportunity to sit with the schools a couple of weeks ago during, I think in their first budget subcommittee meeting. So thank you for that, and wanted to kind of get them to present now that they've discussed as a full committee kind of where they're at budget wise. So I'm not sure, Justin, are you going to present, or I'm not sure. Can you describe the ball and share? I think I promoted you right, but
yeah. Do you have? Thanks for having us. Sort of the first time coming to your meeting formally. Do you folks have a packet? Have you included this slide that we've shared with you previously as a packet so that y'all can follow along, or would you need us to put something up on the screen?
I don't have any package.
Yeah, so I forwarded it out through email, but I can probably find it.
Steve, Mark, can you come to the rescue?
Yep.
Okay, Steve can help out. Perfect. Can everybody see that?
Absolutely.
All right. Is there any way for you to pull that up? Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Yeah.
So yeah, I can run you through this. Steve, Mark, and Kelly, Dr. Kelly Clunchier and Jen Goldberg, we're all on the call, so we can all speak to certain aspects of this, but pretty simple. In the upper left-hand corner, we've got fiscal 2023 appropriated budget of $23,050,000. And then our increases are broken down sort of in two subcategories on the right-hand side, which is that figure of $964,000, which represents total salary increases. And then down below, we've got $738,000, which is operational increases. So I'll go through the salary increases first. That $803,000 figure is a simple roll forward of existing salary with cost of living adjustment. Of note, that's run at 3%. So, is there a little bit of room there? Potentially, but I share with you that it's run at 3%, so that the assumption is that it's not run at 2%. But cost of living at 3%, as well as steps and lanes for the members of the staff and faculty that'll move. And then we have three sort of simple asks, we think, that total $161,000, which really represents like a 0.69% of our total budget, which is, and two of these are from a recent recommendation that we received from an outside evaluation. So $26,000 adjustment towards special education staff, which really is repositioning some of the team chairs onto a different grid, and then $50,000 from some administrative support for the special ed program. And then we're looking at this grade 6 or future grade, I think it's the future grade 6 class, where we think we might actually have to add a general teacher to the tune of a placeholder 85,000. So that all bubbles up to 9.64%, which would only be a 4.1% increase, which I think would be quite tolerable, easy to swallow, like in line with similar requests that we've presented in years past. But then we get to some of these other operational increases, which Fred, as you were just saying, some of this is the result of poor timing or inflation. So we're earmarking $100,000 increase for utilities. That's above and beyond what we've budgeted in the past, just because of where rates are and where consumption is, despite our best efforts. Unfortunately, our bus contract is up this year, so we're going to be sending that out to bid. We hope to get multiple bids, but we might be in a situation where the current provider is bidding against themselves. And if experience plays out, we think we're looking at roughly about $113,000 increase just to run the same level of buses next year. I'm going to skip over the 280 for a second, and then just go through the other there. So, 10,000, 30,000, those are just additional costs associated with some, the copier security systems. The 30,000 is an increase to substitute rates. As you folks may be aware, it's been extremely difficult to secure substitute teachers. We were under market. We knew we were under market. We were trying to get away with it for as long as, that's a poor choice of words. We were under market and we were trying to hold firm because some of the initial feedback had been that if you simply increase your substitute rate, you're basically paying the same substitute pool, just a higher rate. But push came to shove and we felt like we really needed to do something there to attract some folks to our district to try to cover some of those short-term openings. The $180,000 is, we know it's coming. So state approved increase for out of district tuitions up to 14. And when it's allowed, it's expected that we will receive a 14% increase on all out of district tuitions to the tune of 180,000. That's unfortunate timing. And then a 5% adjustment to the case collaborative tuition program. And then the 280, which sort of sparked some initial discussion here, is the community's been asking the school committee for a number of years. Kelly and Steve might have better recollection of this, to evaluate school start times associated with the high school. A number of studies have come out. As all of us ran for our elected seats, we pledged to the community that we would look at this, we would give it a hard look, and we have. So there's been a school start time subcommittee that's been organized. Jen Gold, who's with us tonight, has been a member of that committee. Kelly and Steve put some time in. And we paid $30,000 for an out of district, for a third party review to get some assistance with this. And really what it's looking like, there's three options: do nothing, slide everybody 25 minutes, potentially at no cost, but that gets a little uncomfortable for the younger kids because they're already going to school pretty late. And the feedback there has been that they start to lose attention and their ability to digest or absorb information later in the day. So it appears that the best solution, and no surprise, is to spend more money, which all of our buses run 3 loops in town. We have 3 different start times. And then the way to sort of consolidate that and have the high school and middle school kids start a little bit later and leave the two elementary schools roughly around the same time would be to sort of try to contract an additional 4 buses with the current provider or whoever wishes to bid our bus contract next year. And the cost would be $280,000. So, what it boils down to is roughly 4.1% increase on salaries and 3.2% operational for a little bit higher of a number than we've shown you folks in the past, or that we'd like to ask for. But the reality is this is where we think the numbers might come in. And aside from the 280 and the 161, those are the really only asks. Everything else is sort of a placeholder or incurred costs that we expect to see come forward.
Justin, could I just ask a question? And I apologize because I haven't been in the start time things, although I do have a 17-year-old who gets up at 5 a.m. to make it to school. With the option just to switch the high schoolers and the younger kids and not have to add buses, I just didn't understand how that makes the younger kids stay later.
So we've essentially eliminated that based upon community feedback. Those that have, Brian, no solution's perfect. So we did a community survey. We had a bunch of responses. Jen's got the exact number, but over 1,000 responses. And anyone who's got a K to 2-year-old says, I'm not comfortable putting my kid out at the bus stop when it's still dark, or or whatever. So to simply, there is another district that has done that where the younger kids go to school earlier, they take the earlier slot, and the older kids go to school later. But based upon our survey results, the parents of Littleton felt like that wouldn't be the best solution for us.
Okay.
We're really down to 3 options at this point in time, which is do nothing. We all know what that is. Slide 25%, slide 25 minutes. It helps the middle school and the high school kids, but at what cost? And the feedback we're getting is it might actually hurt the elementary schools more than it helps the high school or middle schools. And then so we got this 280, and the 280 is in there because that's what we think it costs. And we're at the stage now where we're looking to share numbers, and we wanted everyone to be aware of it at this point in time, because we had a lively discussion last school committee meeting about this, as to what the community wanted and what the cost might be. And we plan to take a second look at it at our next meeting, which would be about 9 days from now. And in the event that the school committee wishes to move forward and vote this through, we would then be coming to the town to say, this is our desire. Is there a way to possibly fund this?
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think the option 1 of doing nothing, good Lord, I hope that's not what we do.
I have a question on the OOD tuition. Is that
Yes.
Fed related, or is that just out of district kids that want to go to other schools?
So those are special education placements.
Okay, so these are
Yeah.
placements. Okay,
Correct.
and you
It's not school choice related. It's special ed.
That was my question. I couldn't come up with school choice.
Yeah, things that we feel like we can't, things that we know we can't, or feel like we wouldn't be able to do in district due to high need situation.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask a question about the, just curious, the 803,000 increase, how many employees is there for the school department?
Steve, Kelly, you've got 5 seconds to answer. I don't know off the top of my head, but
You have a ballpark or?
I'm sure we do. Kelly or Steve will chime in real quick.
Okay.
It's all employees. I think we're running around 255 or so employees.
255, 260, something like that.
Okay, thank you.
And this represents a 3% increase. I think he said that
It's a,
Justin said. Yeah.
correct. It's a 3% COLA across the board. And then for those bargaining units, it's also steps and lanes.
Okay, so it rolls out probably closer to 4. I mean, just ballpark. I mean, I haven't seen the details, so I don't really know, but steps and lanes must have what, a 1 or 2% increase.
Yeah, I don't remember the percentage off the top of my head. I apologize.
That's okay.
Even
I'm
more
just
than
trying
that.
to get my hands around it. That's all.
Yeah, Fred, even more than that. So, I mean, we could share with you this. I mean, that's a public document. It's in the contracts,
Okay.
the steps and lanes. I mean, if you're a faculty member or staff member that's experiencing steps and lanes, you're getting an increase, so long as you meet their requirements. And then in theory, if we can get a COLA adjustment approved as well, they're sort of getting a double adjustment. But after 15 years, I want to say 16 years, looking for Kelly or Steve.
We have 15 steps on the grid.
15 steps. Yeah. Then you run out of steps and lanes, and your only possible adjustment is COLA. So that 803,000 or that, 4.1% total staffing increase, some folks are actually getting more than that, and some folks would be getting just the 3%.
If I could also add a comment. So just to remind everybody watching that that's really, it's a 2-year catch up. So for the current year, for FY23, the current year that we're in, we had budgeted a 2% COLA. We ended up settling with some of the bargaining units for 3%. So that additional 1% needs to be made up, obviously, this year, but it rolls into next year. So it's kind of a 2-year catch up as well.
So if I understand what you said, Steve, you somehow funded an extra 1% last year. So what this budget does is it catches up that 1%.
Correct.
Plus
Correct. So for the current year that we're in,
it's a
right.
4% for this, just year over year, it's a 4% budget. Just so I can wrap my head around it. So it sounds like it's a 4% increase year over year because somehow you covered the extra 1% last year when you only budgeted 2%. Is that my understanding that?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the percentages, but that's what happens is we have to add that additional 1% for this year into the budget for next year as well.
Okay. So
in terms of the rolling 4% per year, there are other variables that need to be taken into account. How many teachers are at each step, for example? How many teachers are going across lanes with enhanced qualifications? So it's not fixed by any means.
Right.
It's important to note that we're just entering negotiations with our educators at this point in time, and we'll also be entering negotiations with our other two unions this year as well.
Okay, so that it really is a bit of a cloud bank right now. Okay.
Yeah, let me just expand on that one point further, Fred. So the previous contract, it has been in place for 3 years, or will be in place for 3 years, but the salary increase, the COLA, was agreed that it was going to be negotiated year by year. So, you know, had we 3 years ago agreed.
I'm sorry, that the salary, I guess the salary grid is set for 3 years, but the COLA is negotiated each year. Is that
both? Is it, Steve, is it both the steps and lanes and the COLA?
Okay. Okay.
It's a 3-year rolling contract, but the salary grids are negotiated on an annual basis at this point in time, because that's what the LEA has been wanting.
Okay, that's fine. I'm sorry for these questions, but I'm just going to get into it here. Okay.
And you guys need to if you want that screen back up with that budget back up, I can put that back up. Just let me know.
No, that's fine. I think I've sort of got the lay of the land a little bit there. Okay.
I have one other question.
I guess my point there was, I guess my point was, you know, had we attempted or had the union agreed to locking in steps and lanes and COLA adjustments for the entire contract, we would have known exactly what it was. So one of the risks is, you know, you might run into a year where you have to give 3%, and it just so happens that the headlines of the newspaper were inflation's running at, you know, 10-12% when we were attempting to try to negotiate this last year. So we ended up at 3%, which both parties felt was quite fair. But I think you want to take into account how we negotiated the previous 2 years as well, to sort of blend that together, because we're looking at 803, but some of that is the result of the work that we tried to negotiate with the union the past couple of years.
Yeah, the thing we have to be careful of as we're planning going forward is, if inflation sits here for a couple of 3 years, those increases sit there forever. And then it's really hard at 2.5% plus new growth to cover it going forward. So, you know, just from a planning standpoint, we've really got to be careful over the next several years here.
Agreed.
Okay.
Jerry, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just where you talked about negotiations coming up this year. I was just wondering if there was any sense of how changing the start times might affect that. Do you know how the unions feel about that?
Nothing yet. I mean, they were survey participants as well. And at our first preliminary meeting, we were all just kind of like elephant in the room. Hey, we're talking about this, but no indication whether or not that we would need to negotiate over that impact.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you give them an extra hour's sleep in the morning, they should give you money back.
Should I send them to your office, Fred, for that?
Okay.
All right. Anyone else have questions for?
No. Or at this point, Steve gave us a heads up a while ago on bringing the roof forward. And are there any other major or sizable capital projects other than the roof that you guys are looking at? I know that, Shaker Lane's sort of out there in Neverland right now, but anything else in, any boilers ready to blow up or any of that kind of?
Yeah, I can respond if that's okay. So the other big item that we had on the capital list request for next year was a replacement of the library rooftop HVAC unit. It's the biggest unit on the high school. It's I forgot how many ton unit, 7-ton unit or 40-ton unit or something. It's big. It's the biggest one on the high school. The unit is now 23 years old. It had an estimated useful life of 15 years. So we've been, I won't say band-aiding it, but we've been nursemaiding it for the last 5 or 6 years. We've replaced a number of compressors and pumps and pulleys and stuff on that unit. And it gets to the point where, as I say, it's kind of like a used car. So where do you stop putting money into a used car and decide the best thing to do is just replace the unit itself? So that's where we're at. So that's the only other big ticket item on there at this point in time.
Ballpark price?
I'm sorry?
Ballpark cost?
We estimate it's around $275,000. And that's, we estimate that because we're in the process of replacing another one on the high school now. We ordered that unit back in January. It still hasn't come in yet. It's supposed to be shipped in the next week or two. And that unit is a much smaller unit. And that unit is running about $165,000 total project cost, including the engineering design cost and project management cost. So this unit is a much bigger, it's I won't say it's double the size, but it's a pretty big unit. It services the auditorium. So it's air conditioning and heating, things like that. So we think the 275 is a pretty good estimate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in general, we have to not particularly for this budget, but I think all of our boards have to educate the town that the high school isn't new anymore. The police station isn't new. The fire station, maybe we can say the fire station is still new, but it's like, I think the general feeling in the town is, well, we built everything, so we're all done, right? It's like, no. I think I think it would be good to start educating the town that everything needs to get replaced and everything has a lifetime.
Yeah. So again, if we go back to the feasibility, I mean, the engineering facility study that was done, I think almost 10 years ago now, 2013. There's a lot of units, a lot of HVAC units that have an estimated life of 15 years. And as Brian said, the high school is now 23 years old, which means it was built almost 24 years ago as far as the systems installed and things like that. So, there's other units that's going to start coming up. The middle school is 16 years old. So, we have 5 or 6 years left of that roof, and then we have to start thinking about replacing that roof. The Russell Street School roof, I think is pretty close to 18 or 20 years old as well. So, they're starting, their big projects are starting to stack up as far as needs at this point in time.
Yeah. So one thought on that, right? I mean, I know a lot of time and energy went in last year into trying to, get to more of a real 10-year capital plan, right? So I mean, I think we need to make sure that all that type of stuff that was out there and captured in prior surveys and things like that gets into that, right? If it's not already, just to make sure, because I know we're looking at a lot of capital stuff, even before, big things like the roof that, we just don't really have, there's way more requests than our ability to spend on that over the coming years, right? So, and I think that's going to be a big part of education for the town as well, right? As we're looking at a lot of these long-term costs and bringing on a facilities manager to help manage that, it's the constant perception that building all these buildings is free because it's under the levy limit. I mean, there's huge trade-offs to everything we're doing, right? Because we can't, we can't pull in all this additional debt as well as fund a healthy cap plan and all the rest of it, right? So I think that's, to continue to build out those views and making them as publicly accessible and talking about it as much as we can just helps people to understand what the real, what the real long-term plans for us are, right?
I'm not sure this is the right group to ask this question of, but we pulled an article, or the selectmen pulled an article for the tennis courts off the town meeting to look at whether it made sense to do 4 courts down at the high school, or what made more financial sense for the town than putting $1 million into infrastructure for a separate site. And I haven't heard anything. I don't know whether anybody's working on it. Anybody from the school side working on it. It's just before it all of a sudden drops in somebody's lap here, I just make sure it doesn't totally fall off our radar screen. Anthony, you good?
Yeah, Tyler, I'll take it. So, Fred, part of the reason the select board withdrew the article is because the recent development of Indian Hill being for sale. So, it certainly looks like we're going to go forward in the town meeting and look at buying that property. And I think at that point, the reason why it was held is because now that we would potentially own that parcel adjacent to the high school, we could actually now come up with another project to add to the tennis courts at the high school. And I've talked to superintendent and Steve and adding the pickleball courts and et cetera. So I think what we would do is make that part of the annual budget request to address the tennis courts.
Okay, but it's still on the radar. It's just,
yeah, it's still on the radar.
It's one of those projects I could see that fell in the swamp, and
yeah, no, it's all
loose later.
It's all contingent on Indian Hill, really.
Okay. And to Fred's point, the previous plan at Cooper that got shelved, Fincom felt pretty blindsided by that. So, the earlier we could be involved, at least hear about anything with the tennis courts, it just makes everything go smoother.
Okay.
All right. Any additional questions for Kelly, Steve, Jen, or Dustin?
I have one more question. You had mentioned that about 1,000 people, I think, had responded to the survey about the start times. Do you have numbers as far as how close or far apart they were, for what options people wanted?
What the data was, yeah.
We have a lot of data. I'm not sure I could give you a very high level summary. If that would be interesting. We could also share data with anybody that's interested, much deeper dive, but around 66, about 2/3 of, or about 60% of people, I'd say, want some sort of change. Is that right, Justin? I think it ended up about 40% wanted no change. And that was across parents, school staff, and then we also we included in the survey middle school and high school students. And so that was across the board. And then we also broke it down school by school. And then we also broke it down based on what each person's role was in terms of, was it a parent, a student, or school staff. But overall across the town, it was about, like I said, about 40% of people wanted no change, maybe 35, I can't remember, 35 to 40%. And then 60 to 65% wanted some kind of change. And it was broken out based on, what kind of change they wanted. But most people, as Justin said, really favored this idea of shifting to a 2-tier system, which allows none of the schools to start too early and not to have to shift any of the schools too late.
But the questions were just as far as what they wanted, not factoring in, do you want this at this cost? You know what I mean?
Right. No, we didn't put a cost to a price tag out to the community. We made it clear that certain of the options, the two-tier system would require more buses, which clearly would require some kind of a cost, but we didn't spell it out.
Okay, thank you.
And if I can just say that the school committee packet is on the school website that has Jen's presentation from the school committee last week.
Oh, great, thank you.
Lots of pie charts in that presentation. So if you like charts, you'll be right at home.
Great.
Well, I think
we ran with like 5 scenarios in the initial survey that went out, and then based upon a school committee discussion last week, we kind of whittled it down to 3, released a second survey. So we feel like after we get the second survey results, we'll have a very good understanding of what the community is looking for, which again, we're not going to get 100% in one camp. At best, we're only going to maybe upset 49% of the people. But we're going to do what we can. Jen, I'm curious, you might know off the top of your head, like how many, didn't you have was it like 1,300 survey responses for
1,300 responses. Yep.
Yeah.
So really good. We're really happy with that.
So just another way to look at it would be, if you have a freshman in high school, the school is going to spend $1 million over that freshman's 4 years to get them to school an hour earlier or an hour later or whatever. So it's not small money that we're talking here. And I think, guys, and I don't know how you pay for it, whether there is grant money available or whatever, but it's not just the 280 this year, it's 280 every year forever going up. So just think about it before you sort of come forward with that.
We are. Fred, I mean,
really just hearing about it
that
today.
scenario you just gave, that family benefits for 4 years. There are plenty of other folks in town that don't have any kids in the school. And like you're saying, it's 280 every year with inflation built in. So, I mean, you can watch the tape. We had a pretty lively discussion last week. I think we'll have another one next week. We don't, 280 is, it's not a small number, and it's not a small number compared to 23 million in the current budget, but we get that. We totally understand that.
And I'm not suggesting that it's a frivolous number, but with what we're seeing here, 1,600,000, 1,700,000, and what I haven't seen the numbers from the town yet. But my sense is, we're going to see something similar from them. And if that's the case, then there's going to have to be give and take on both sides, because that number is just going to be way too big. Not a little too big this year, but way too big. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And this is, as far as we're concerned, this is the first step in the process. So,
and I just want to do a counterpoint. My background's in cognitive psych, and everything I've read said that, especially for the high schoolers, getting a little extra sleep is critical. So for me, this is the best $280,000 that the town can possibly spend.
Well, yeah, but I think that's where I think that's where getting the varying viewpoints is so critical, right? Because my 2 high school kids are dead set against it, right? They want to get up early, go to school, and get home, so they can do their other stuff. So I'm sure balancing all those viewpoints is, commend you guys for all the hard work and gathering it in. So it's definitely not an easy decision.
That's why you get the big bucks.
Yeah, and I mean, the community input is so important, and it was one piece of input that we're taking into account. But I mean, as you said, Brian, like there is an endless amount of research that shows like the material benefits of doing this. And just I just read a stat actually this morning that fewer than 10% of high schools and middle schools in the U.S. start before 7:30. Less than 10%, and start before 7:30. And our schools start at 7:15 and 7:20. So we really are.
So we're leading the pack.
Yeah, we're really trailing the pack. Right, everything's shifting in the other direction. We're even with that data point, schools are starting later and later, and even states are passing entire statewide mandates not to allow schools to start before 8:30. So we're asking for a shift here to try to be commensurate with the science and the data. And many schools in our neighboring towns and throughout the state have made this shift already, are looking very closely at making this shift. So it's the way the wind is blowing, and we just feel that now is the right time to do it. There's momentum, there is community support. Sure, there are dissenting opinions, but that also comes with a bias of people just not wanting change and people being used to their schedules and the status quo. So I think if you build in and kind of account for that bias, the desire for change is really there even more strongly. So.
But just be aware as we go forward, it may be that the school committee decides to do this, but has to find the money somewhere else in the budget. Because I don't know whether after we get through the town and the school roll together, just, how it will, number one, what the number will roll up to, and number two, what the town's appetite is for spending. It's as simple as that. So once the town votes a budget, the school committee and school administration have total control over that budget. And if you choose to not do this to do that, then that's certainly within your bailiwick. So.
Yeah, well, I think for all of us, right? We'll have a.
Yeah.
Sorry, Fred.
No, that's fine. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm just coming back in.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think we're all gonna have a much clearer picture in just under 2 weeks of where this is all gonna land, right? Once kind of the initial stuff from the town comes out, we'll know how big a gap we're looking at on both sides, and all gonna have to work hard to figure out what to do about it, right?
I mean, just another piece to add to the conversation. The pandemic took its toll on families and students, and every district within this nation is finding that we have far more students that are suffering from anxiety to the point where they need extra support, and depression as well. So when you take that into account, I know $280,000 is a lot every year, but we also have to take a look at the context of if we have to continue to add services to our students as a result of people that are suffering from mental health challenges, anxiety, and depression. What's the dollar amount on that as we move forward? If we have an infrastructure, school start times that are counterbalancing what we're trying to do to help our students through difficult times, we also have to ask ourselves how effective that is. So there are a lot of factors involved in this conversation. It's not simply just moving school start times forward. We're doing this for a variety of reasons, and there are plenty of studies out there that cite significant benefits from this. Unfortunately, most of the studies haven't taken into account, and I'm sure they will soon, the effects of the pandemic on our students' well-being.
Do you see, I know we're adding more buses and more expenses. Do you see bus fees going up, or do you see, I know it's certainly not going to pay for the 280, but to any little bit would help. Is that being thought about or not thought about?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We are having conversations about that as well.
Okay, great. Okay, great. No, I think having an open discussion is a great thing, and I think any transparency is better than not. So I really appreciate your candor. It's great.
All right. Any additional questions from anybody? All right. Thank you all very, very much for joining and giving us an early preview here. So appreciate the time.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, happy to do it.
you.
Seeing
For
you.
having us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Hey, Justin,
Yeah,
before you guys go,
Yes.
December 5th, we're going to be presenting all the raw budget numbers to the select board, and I invited the Fincom, and I'll invite the school committee to hear. These are the submitted capital plan and operating budgets without them being vetted, just so the community knows, so everybody knows where we're going to stand on December 5th, and a lot of work that we have to do to come to a balanced budget and then decide on capital projects to move forward with. So December 5th is the select board meeting.
Like 6:30 or something.
Yeah, probably about 7.
I'll make note. Perfect.
Okay. We'll shoot
Thank
you an email.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving,
All
everyone.
right.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
You too.
Thanks all.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
All right. Next on the agenda was just any discussion around our joint meeting last week with the select board, or not with, select board, planning board, and Affordable Housing Trust. I think I'm remembering that right. On the MBTA communities plan. Obviously, it was good to get that preview into the process. I think there's a whole lot of info that's going to come out over the next year that really, is going to drive to, a lot of, I think there's going to be a lot of, budgetary impact and data that we're going to need to get and look at and all consider as a group, right? And I think, impact on schools, and there's just so many things that I think this will touch, right? Schools, emergency services, et cetera. But, it was nice to be invited into the process at the beginning and, see how that's all going to lay out over the next, 6 months or so, right? I don't know if anyone, I know, I think everyone here made that, but I mean, did anyone have anything that they wanted to, discuss from last week?
I was kind of wondering, I thought a number of years ago, there was some talk about maybe moving the station, maybe to the Sandbell area or some different areas. Is that a possibility that could get moved more into the, where we already have the multi-unit housing coming?
I think with all the improvements that they've done to the station, that station's is where it is. I mean, that was a lot of effort, a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be with us long after we're not walking this earth anymore.
Well, especially that would be cost to the MBTA versus cost to us, right? Which is what we're talking about.
Right. They're not doing too good either.
I think this is what this is all about, is to drive more people out of the city to ride the train, so the train can hire more deadbeat administrators.
Well, the interesting thing with that, Fred, is, I mean, like Boston's hopping again. I mean, I'm down there for meetings a lot, but there's people aren't on the trains. Everyone's driving in now because no one wants to be jammed in a tin can anymore, right? So I think commuting patterns in the city they've changed, but it's a lot of people are back in there, at least for meetings and stuff, right? Maybe not every day, but.
Yeah,
Well, I think it's not even that. I mean, I think you're right, but it's not even so much jammed in tin cans. I mean, I went in sometime recently, and it's just the lack of convenience. I mean, there are not many people on the train, but the train runs, once an hour, and it's all during the day. They've sort of eliminated the whole rush hour stacking of things. The thing that sort of struck me about the meeting was it seemed sort of a foregone conclusion, or it seemed that we were being presented a foregone conclusion of, yes, we're going to have to do all this crazy amount of stuff. And then people said, well, maybe we're already largely covered, especially with the IBM digital property, maybe we don't really need to do so much. And, it of course was no shock that the consultants were like, no, it probably would be very cool to do all kinds of stuff. And I think we have to be very careful about that train, as it were, getting ahead of itself.
Well, it seemed like, I mean, I think I forget the percentage offhand, right? Was it 10% or 15% or whatever have to be within that station zone? So I think that's where we know we're going to have to do something, right? Is the area within, the percentage have to be within that half mile or whatever of the station is the area that I think they were talking about, kind of focusing on primarily. I think that's where, we have to add zoning or change zoning regardless of what happens at 550 King or across the street.
It was 20%,
20% within a half mile radius of the,
150
Right.
units.
But the zoning had to allow it, but that doesn't say that, if some developer decides to do it, you can't stop them because they have it by right rather than by a special permit. So,
Right.
And Tyler, you were right too, because I know that she was talking about 40% was on King Street and 10% would have been in that area, with the 15 being per acre. So I do remember them saying that as well. So I know where you got that 10% from.
10 of the 550 King Street would count. Is that what you're saying?
They said 40% could qualify, 10% would have to be in the district right where the train station is.
yeah, no, it's 20% has to be within a half mile radius, and the rest can come from 550. So that's 150 units, and the other 600 can come from where we already approved 700 and some odd units.
Right.
Right, but that we're going to have to provide extra busing or transport from the King Street over to the train station, or else there's no point. It's like, hey, look, there's a train, a mile and a half from you. Isn't that convenient? Good luck getting there.
Yeah, no, the developer during discussions committed to contributing towards the commuter, the shuttle to the train
shuttle.
station.
Yeah.
I'm not sure this is something that, if I was driving the bus here, I'm not sure I'd be the one wanting to be at the head of the pack, because Weston, I went on their website and Weston is tagged for 950 units. Lincoln is 600 and something. And I have a hard time believing that, Weston's going to put up 900 apartments. I just don't see that. So I'm not sure that being at the head of the pack makes any sense at all in this kind of thing.
So Anthony, we're all charging. I mean, we're all charging towards the same dates, right? I mean, so I think maybe that's something else we could roll with the consultant. We talked about looking at what other communities were doing during that initial meeting, but I mean, I think learning or seeing what others are doing if there's others that get ahead of us, right? I mean, I don't think we need to rush to beat the dates, by any stretch of imagination, right? But I think everyone has to have their plans and things by a certain time, right? So we're probably somewhat constrained to whether other communities get ahead of those deadlines versus because we have to shoot for that, right? So we can learn from those that choose to be early adopters. Otherwise, everyone may be rushing to get there just if they have to.
Right. Yeah, there certainly is. And I'm sure that there's some communities that may be doing zoning too that might take 1 or 2 town meetings to get that passed too. So they may not wait for the last minute, knowing that the first time out, depending on what they present, might get turned down at town meeting.
Sure. But I would think if you could demonstrate that you were diligently trying to move towards something, that the state would take that into account. I mean, heavens, if town meeting says no, what are they going to do?
Right. Hey, you got a new governor coming in place in another month, so things could change. So there's more to be seen what falls out.
Yep.
Do we have a sense of how much money we get from, I guess, Mass DOT? Because that would be the funds, that's the stick they have if we didn't play ball. I was wondering, how much do we get from them?
So I think a chapter 90 allocations about $400,000, but I don't think that's where you might be in jeopardy. It's for the grants. It's for, we just got a $1.5 million MassWorks grant.
Okay.
We just got an $8 million earmark in the economic development bill, which was funded. So those are some of the examples that could hurt us in the future.
Gotcha. Thank you.
What about state aid? Do you think they'd ever take our state aid if we didn't do it?
No, I don't think so. That's just my opinion. I don't think so.
Oh, well, it'll be what it is.
Then we're just going to have Fred driving all those kids that got to go to school later in his car.
Absolutely, yeah.
You don't mind Fred, do you?
Yeah, no, hey. You can't afford me as a bus driver.
All right.
Hey.
Yeah, I mean, I think just, I think driving towards hard data and all these conversations is what we need to, as a board, just continue to push for, right? I mean, there's so many things where we're making these decisions without always having, real models around the impact on schools or again, fire, police are the ones that jump to mind most, but obviously there's other things that affect stuff in town as well, right? And so I think, we have a lot of conversations, we'll have them in the budget cycle, even outside the stuff where I think, continue to push for that hard data lets us make those decisions with a whole lot more, a lot more clarity.
Right. And at the very least, we got invited to the table early, so that's all to the good.
All right, moving on. Unless anyone have any other thoughts on MTA communities they want to talk about? Nope. All right. Public input, seeing as we have no public in the lobby, we'll move past that, except for Marilyn. Thank you, Marilyn, as always. Member updates. Jerry, any updates for the group?
I do not have any.
Okay. Brian?
So I'll say a couple of number of parents have approached me with concerns about special education things and being not necessarily totally happy with the district. I reached out to Justin and Brad because it's not clear that it's more of a school committee thing than a Fincom thing, but just trying to also pay attention to people who are reaching out because they know me. So I chatted with Justin and Brad, and I'm going to try to direct the parents to chat with them about their concerns. So that's about it.
Okay, thanks. Fred?
Nope.
All right. The only thing I had just to mention, I think we have there's a meeting of the Transportation Advisory Council on the 29th. So next Tuesday. I know we still have a vacancy there for a second representative if anyone's interested. I'm honestly not sure exactly what's going to happen with TAC. Gary LaCroix was really taking and running with that. A new chairman took over, whose last meeting I believe is the meeting next week, at least as far as chair, and as far as I know, no one's really raised their hand to take that on. So that board, not sure what'll transpire going forward. It's a good sounding board to kind of talk through transportation issues, things like that. So again, if anyone's interested in getting involved there, let me know. Otherwise, I'll give an update on our next meeting on kind of how that transpired. Anthony, I don't know if you've heard anything more on TAC and their challenges on kind of continuity and keeping that running, but
No, I haven't, Tyler.
okay. All right. So that's all I had. So moving on to minutes. Get Marilyn in here.
Actually, can
sure.
I just add,
Go ahead, Brad.
just
Yeah, sure.
so we have our various assignments and of departmental departmental contacts, I'm thinking this is a real good time to start reaching out. Because I'm on police and I think fire as well. So I'm thinking maybe I'm just saying this out loud, maybe mostly for myself, that probably good to reach out before we get too far into the budget process.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Brian. Sorry.
You may want to just hold until December 5th, and then between the 5th and the 21st, we're going to be having our internal budget meeting. So I don't know if it makes sense to wait until after we've had an opportunity, so you maybe can hear some of the concerns maybe that we have with department's request, Brian.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I'm at fault for this, right? In not getting out the list. We discussed it probably a month and a half ago, right? I think had we been proactive, kind of reaching out after, Alicia sent the budget request and just, being there as a resource would have made sense, right? But I mean, maybe Brian at this point, since they've already done that and turned it in, at least let them know who the contact is if you haven't talked to them already, right? Just so they know kind of, if they have questions or want to educate you early, at least they know who it is. But it probably makes sense to like Anthony said, wait and see what they've submitted if they've already done that.
Yep.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
I'm gonna bring Marilyn in quick, see if we have any minutes, and then we'll move to that. Give me one sec. There. What happened? There we go. Hey, Marilyn, any minutes for us to approve tonight?
She's still muted.
All right.
You have the minutes from the meeting 2 weeks ago from tonight. Was that the 8th?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Did everyone
Those went out
to?
right after the meeting.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Got those.
You looked
Did
okay to
everyone have a
me.
chance?
Oh, and
Okay.
before you even start, Tyler, I'm on the TAC and it is meeting next Tuesday night at 5:30. And Nick is, as you know, retiring I have no idea what's going on at this point. I can let you know after the meeting.
Oh no, I'll be there as well. So I'll see you. I'll see you next week.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make it. Okay. So does anyone, if no one had any questions, I would love to get a motion to approve the minutes of the 8th.
I'll move the minutes from November 8th.
Second.
Get a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Jerry?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Fred?
Aye.
I'm a yes as well. All right. Now, Fred, we can move to your favorite motion.
My favorite motion. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, roll call vote. Fred?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
I'm a yes as well. Thanks, everybody, and have a good
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Happy
Thanksgiving.
holidays.
Everyone have a good
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.